Hello, my name is Ben.
And my name's Josh.
And welcome back to FPL Graduates and welcome back to another video. And it's our final one of pre-season before the deadline. We're going to be talking about our teams. They're pretty much locked in. We're going to say it's our locked in team. Obviously, there could be one or two alterations, but we are ready for game week 1 to begin. Let's get straight into our teams.
Okay, so we're going to kick it off with my team. I think I've been locked in. I say locked in. I've been pretty much locked in for about a week now. Just a few minor alterations, bench players, etc., etc. So yeah, we'll run through it now. So we've got Onana in goal, Wolves at home, first game of the season. Looking forward to seeing how he plays. And me and Ben have predicted him to be, a good goalkeeper in terms of the bonus points. I want to see if that comes to fruition. Really, really safe bet in my opinion, though. £5 million for United's keeper, 17 clean sheets last season for United. I think they're only going to improve on that. So, yeah, really nice option. What's your thoughts on Onana, Ben?
Yeah, fantastic option. Like you said, with the bonus points, high chance of picking them up when United do keep clean sheets. And I think with the fixtures that they have, they've got a couple of nice ones in there like Wolves, but they also have a fixture like Spurs where I expect him to pick up a load of save points just because Spurs have been so attacking in pre-season and peppering the goal with a lot of shots. So I don't see any reason why you wouldn't go with an Onana set and forget for the start of the season. Obviously, there's a few other options you can go for. You can go a bit cheaper and go 4.5 and a 4 in goal. But for a 5 million keeper, he looks to be the best out of the bunch.
Okay, so moving on to defence then, we've gone with the 3 at the back. Starting off with Estupiñán, pretty much everyone has him. He's over 50% owned, the highest owned defender on FPL at the moment. And that is because Brighton's first 3 fixtures are really, really good. And he is also very, very good. Really explosive, loads of attacking returns with him. And also, like I said, those 3 fixtures, Luton at home. I'd be shocked if they concede at home, Brighton. They look really solid as a team. The defense hasn't played too many minutes together as a whole. I know Lewis Dunk's only just come back from sort of an injury/recovery, so it'll be interesting. But I think Brighton should be okay to keep a clean sheet in that game week 1 fixture. Gabriel, Nottingham Forest at home. A lot of people have been asking who's the best Arsenal defender to get. A lot of people on Zinchenko, Saliba. Gabriel is by far the best option in my opinion. He's got the best attacking threat out of all those Arsenal defenders, probably barring Ben White, which you don't really want to pay for at 5.5 million. Left-sided as well. So there's not a lot of left-footed centre-backs at Arsenal. And I know Arteta likes having that left-sided centre-back. And yeah, an overall really good fixtures for Arsenal as well. So really nice pick, 5 million as well, dirt cheap to get, one of the best defences in the league's defence in there. And then to finish things off, 4.5 million is Destiny Aduji, I've been told how to pronounce it. Brentford away. Obviously, Spurs defensively aren't going to be solid this season, but the hope is with him is that he gets forward a lot in pre-season. As Ben mentioned, with Spurs, they're just pretty much gung-ho up top. He's a big part of that, getting forward, heat maps all over the second half of the pitch. He's scored a goal in pre-season and missed a big chance. So he's getting in the right positions. And I think he's pretty assured to be their starting left back for Tottenham. So he's in there as well. And that'll be like a rotation, as you'll see on the bench, between 2 £4.5 million defenders. Ben, what's your thoughts on that defence so far?
Yeah, it's 2/3 of it is relatively template, and I agree. Gabriel, I do think is the best sort of defensive option. I think Timber is also a decent option to go for if you're looking for someone a little bit differential who may be getting further forward in sort of open play. But yeah, agree with the Estupiñán pick as well. I think a lot of FPL managers are going to have Brighton players for the first 3 fixtures at least. I'm not as hot on. Is it? How did you pronounce it again?
Apparently, it's Udoji.
Udoji. I'm not as hot on him just because they're attacking loads. It obviously doesn't guarantee the points, but like you said, he's got decent attacking stats. But the Spurs defense, still is conceding goals in preseason. They conceded to Shakhtar, they conceded a few to Barcelona as well. Granted, that's not their first team that were playing in that. So I'll be a little bit more hesitant because you are rotating him, though. I think that increased the appeal. And if you had like a £4 million defender on the bench, you'd probably not be looking at him at all. But since you're rotating it, I can see and understand the appeal for getting him in for the better fixtures.
Yeah, definitely. He's not going to be starting every week, like you say. It's more of a riskier £4.5 million defender, but the upside is there. And this is one of those players that, could score big points if he gets into those positions. So that is the three at the back defence. I'll show you the other defenders when we get down to the bench. Moving on to the midfield now. It's a 5-man midfield, and this is basically where all the budget has gone. Mo Salah there, 12.5 million. He's been a lock in my team for probably a month now. I think I've had him for quite a while. Chelsea away opening day. He's yet to blank in game week 1 in FPL. He's blanked every time in game week 2, though, and they do have Bournemouth at home, and I plan to captain him. So something's got to break for me to have a good start to the season. I just think in that Liverpool team, I want someone from that Liverpool attack. They look really, really good. And the only person that is nailed for minutes is Mo Salah. You get what you pay for. Top quality player, loads of goals and assists in pre-season. So I'm really, really happy to own him and make those sacrifices elsewhere of not having that Rashford and another £8 million player. I'd rather have Salah and then the 4.5. Saka and Martinelli, my Arsenal double up in there. I've gone with the Arsenal double up in midfield rather than the United one, purely because I think Arsenal's fixtures are a little bit better. And I think they're just more likely to score goals. With United, we're still not sure what attack they're going to play. Obviously, Højlund's come in. I don't think he'll start straight away, but I do see him getting integrated quite a bit. So I think that moves Rashford about the pitch in game a little bit as well. So it's a little bit unknown, whereas Saka and Martinelli, we know that they're both going to play. Martinelli started 34 out of 37 potential games last season in the Premier League. I don't think he's that much of a rotation risk with Trossard at this present time. So especially with the Jesus injury, I think Trossard would be more likely to go through the middle and rotate with Havertz that way. And then Bruno Fernandes, 8.5 million. I think Rashford is worth it over him. I don't really want to sacrifice elsewhere for the 0.5. I think they'll score a similar amount of points. I don't think there's going to be that much disparity between Bruno and Rashford. But I do think Rashford is the better pick. But Bruno, though, on a lot of set pieces, penalties, the lot, we all know what you're getting with him. He's been really, really good asset over the last 3 seasons in FPL. So hopefully that continues. And then to finish off the midfield, in my opinion, the best 6.5 million midfielder to go for off the bat is Eberechi Eze. Sheffield United away, first game of the season. They're just selling their whole team that basically got them promoted at the moment. So I think it's a great fixture to target, a great team to target. I know they've got Arsenal in game week 2, but he is their talisman. He's on penalties. There's not a lot not to like about Eze. What's your thoughts on that midfield, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, there's one key decision that's been made in that, and that's Salah or no Salah. And I think the decision for a lot of FPL managers, if you are getting in Salah, I think you do have to captain him game week 2 to warrant the price tag that you're paying for him. If you're thinking of not captaining Salah in game week 2, I don't think there's too much of a reason to then go with him, because you're sort of wasting however much it is on Salah and not captaining him. So that the reasoning behind that is logical for you getting him in. But it is to the downside of not having someone like Rashford in there. Saka and Martinelli, I agree. I think that triple up you got on the Arsenal is the best triple up to go for. A few people questioning Martinelli's minutes. I think he's a 60, 70 minute man anyway from last season, and he picked up a load of points before then anyway. And I think the fact that he does play 60, 70 minutes means he is guaranteed to pretty much play every single game. We saw that last season. He played the majority of games, barely got rested. And then, Eze, I do like the pick. I am still a little bit worried about the attacking output of the whole team of Crystal Palace and how that could potentially affect Eze. But he is in good form. He is going to be on set pieces. He's going to be on penalties. He's a talismanic figure, or is going to become a talismanic figure in that team. So I think he is, for me, in the conversation for the best 6.5 million midfielder. But again, it really is like no one can truly say that their 6.5 is going to be the best, because it's so close between quite a few 6.5 million midfielders to start the season. Some of them have the fixtures, some of them, like Eze, have the form in pre-season. So I think there's going to be a standout one. We just don't know which one that's going to be yet.
Yeah, definitely. It's going to be interesting to see. Obviously, there's a few unknowns with those 6.5s as well, like Mbeumo and Mitoma. Brighton, there's a lot of players there. Will Mitoma be rested? Not a lot of people are sure. And Mbeumo, obviously, without Tony, how are Brentford going to play? Where is Mbeumo going to play? Is he going to play up top? Is he going to play out on the right? There's a few unknowns, but it'll be interesting to see who does the best. Obviously, there's Newcastle guys as well who no one's really mentioned. Diaby, so many options. So I'm sure we'll be able to hop on them as soon as they come to fruition. Then up top, 2-man up front, João Pedro from Brighton, 5.5 million. He's not assured to start. I wouldn't say, yeah, he's going to start game week 1 against Luton, but for 5.5 million, it's a risk worth taking, in my opinion. He is on penalties. We've seen him take a penalty in pre-season with Pascal Gross on the pitch, which goes to show that he should be taking them come if they were to get one against Luton, for example. And yeah, like I said, 5.5 million is a risk worth taking. I've got players on the bench that if he was to be benched, they can come on for him. So it's not the end of the world for those first 3 fixtures. I think it's worth moving to. The only downside is in terms of squad structure, moving him off, because unless there's another 5.5 to 6.5 million striker that appears, it's going to be difficult to sort of move him around and try and find the cash elsewhere. That probably have to downgrade Salah or something like that, which isn't too bad because then it's only a 2 transfer, but then I'm losing someone like Mo Salah. So that's just one thing to be wary of if you're going with João Pedro. And then obviously to finish things off, it's Erling Haaland. He will be my captain game week 1. There's no doubt about it. A lot of people looking for alternative City assets. I think for me personally, obviously there's none in this team. It's just too hard to pick. And I think the ones that are nailed, like a Jack Grealish, like maybe Stones or Diaz, they just don't offer the upside for the risk. Like 5.5 million for a City defender, I think is a bit too expensive given their recent defensive form in the last season or so. And then I think Jack Grealish at 7.5 doesn't really get those attacking returns that you want from someone at the same price like James Maddison. I think he'll get a lot more attacking returns than Jack Grealish this season. So that's my thoughts, Ben. What's your thoughts on the attack and maybe the Man City assets as well?
Yeah, I mean, the João Pedro one leaves you in a difficult position because in terms of players that you're looking to downgrade to facilitate an upgrade on Pedro, you're going to be getting rid of someone who could be a season keeper, which is a tough one to sort of work out. If you look at someone like Salah, Saka, Bruno, Martinelli, where the budget is, you could argue all 4 of those for the season, you could have them in for the whole year, effectively. So that's the only difficulty with that. But I do think he's been given the number 9. He's played the most minutes out of any Brighton attacker in pre-season. He's on penalties. You just wouldn't rotate the penalty taker as much as everyone else, in my opinion. So I do think his minutes are at least a bit more secure than some of those other players like Ferguson and Cisse and what have you. So yeah, I think Pedro is relatively secure, at least for the opening weeks of the season in FPL anyway, before any European commitments come in.
Nice. So then moving on to the bench, this is what's been changing the most, really, just sort of picking the most optimum bench options that will get the most minutes. And hopefully, if I do have to use them in the case of maybe João Pedro getting benched, etc., these guys will be able to fill in nicely. So we'll start off in goal. Obviously, Matt Turner has joined Nottingham Forest from Arsenal. So he is a starting 4.0 million keeper at the moment, but Forest, I think, still are in the market for goalkeepers. Dean Henderson's been spoken about a lot. So whether he stays as a starter is yet to be seen, but I think it's more of a guarantee than Areola at the moment. So that's why he's in there for me. First defender is Levi Colwill. That's the defender that I'll be rotating with Adoji or however you pronounce his name. Obviously, first game week, Liverpool at home. It's not the best fixture, but from game week 2 onwards, they face West Ham, and then it's just a sea of green fixtures until game week 8. So a lovely fixture run for him. I think he's pretty assured minutes-wise, left-footed with Thiago Silva, took the number 26 shirt, long-term deal. I don't think he would have took that long-term deal if he wasn't assured minutes. He could have gone to Brighton or any other team, really, and got first-team football there. Kabore, I think for me, he's the best £4 million defender for your bench. Attacking wing-back, Luton, not going to keep a lot of clean sheets, let's be honest, but they were the best defensive side out of the newly promoted sides last season. So it could be a spot there, but hopefully I don't have to use him too much realistically. And then the third on the bench is Cameron Archer. Been linked with a move to Sheffield United quite heavily. I think he will move away from Aston Villa. I think Aston Villa are looking to sort of recoup some funds there. They sold Aaron Ramsey, I think, to Burnley as well with a buyback clause. A similar sort of deal is happening with Cameron Archer as we speak prior to the deadline. So hopefully he gets a move and we might see Cameron Archer getting some of those first team minutes at Sheffield United. What's your thoughts on the bench, Ben?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't had the time to potentially transfer in Turner, but it's probably likely I'm going to do a similar sort of thing. Just have a 4 million playing keeper guaranteed. It doesn't really matter what team they're playing for. If I'm being honest, a lot of people talk about sort of rotations in keepers, but with a 5 million keeper, we don't need to worry too much about that, as we know we're probably going to play them pretty much every week of the season anyway. Colwell, I think, is a decent option. I think having Chelsea coverage, at least from game week 3 onwards, is very sensible to do. Looking at Cabora as well, I think he's a decent option to go for. And again, it's not really a case of it shouldn't hopefully matter too much which 4.0 defender you're going for. Potentially the lower owned, the better in terms of risk, and Cabora is pretty low owned. And then, yeah, Archer, I don't mind that at all. He could be a starting 4.5 million striker. I mean, we know there's so many if, buts, and maybes with these guys. Like, you got Archer potentially moving to Sheffield United. We've got Antonio moving away from West Ham potentially, which could open up a spot for Mibama. So there's a few options there. And again, for a third spot on the bench, it shouldn't hopefully matter too much. Okay, so going into my team, we're going to start off in goal. And again, I've also gone for Onana. It's probably quite obvious that I was also doing the same based on what I was saying with Josh's team. But yeah, the opening fixtures are really nice. I don't think I'm going to rotate him out with another keeper. So it makes sense for me to own him. Josh, is there anything else really to say on Onana that we haven't already covered?
I think maybe on the negative side, maybe a lot of people obviously seen him in pre-season. He's been like chipped twice, for example. But I think when you look at those goals, for example, the first one, Jude Bellingham, the ball's offside anyway for him to get chipped, and then the second one, Dalot literally passed it to the attacker for him to get lobbed from about 40 yards. So yeah, you got to look at these things in detail rather than just looking at maybe like a screenshot of Onana in the back of the net like he's just been lobbed. I think he'll be a top quality keeper. I think he's definitely an upgrade on De Gea. So I can only see that defense getting better. And like we said before, his distribution is crazy. So pass completion rates, all that good stuff. I can only see good things with him at the moment, especially with a fixture like Wolves at home. I think they then obviously travel to Spurs, which, like you said, could be good for saves. And then they have Nottingham Forest at home after that. I'd be shocked if we don't get 2 clean sheets out of the 3 in those games to start the season. So a really, really good pick and goal.
Okay, so moving on to defence, we've got Estepinian in there as well as Gabriel. So same two as Josh. And I think the underlying template and the foundations of your team remain quite similar throughout. And it's about those differentials that we're going for on our teams. And I do think, yeah, those two are the best sort of 2 defenders to go for at the moment in FPL, especially for the opening fixtures. Arsenal's fixtures are great going forwards, and Brighton's are decent for the first 3 as well. I've also gone for John Stones. So I know Josh has said that he didn't think any of the City assets were worth it, but I think with that opening fixture run, you have to sort of find a way to get another City asset in. And I think the most nailed option is John Stones. We saw him get plenty of minutes in pre-season, and there's a lot of uncertainty, at least in my opinion, about some of these City assets, especially in defence. We've seen Nathan Ake not partake really in pre-season due to an injury. Gvardiol has only just linked up with Manchester City, and he could end up playing at that left centre-back role. And Stones is sort of the only consistent that has remained throughout this pre-season tour with Manchester City. And with that opening fixture run, with the potential that he has the technical ability, and probably the only one in the defense has the technical ability to play that inverted role. So I do think John Stones is a good pick to go for. Yes, it's 5.5 million. Yes, a little bit more, but for the opening fixtures, I don't see a reason why not. Josh, what are your thoughts? John Stones, I know you sort of said earlier you didn't think any City assets are worth it. What do you think of that?
Yeah, like obviously for me personally, I didn't think he's worth it, but you get what you pay for with the 5.5. Like you mentioned, all the 5s, there's a lot of risk attached with them. There's like 9 potential players who can play in those centre-back roles that they still have on their books. And I think, like you say, John Stones is probably towards the most nailed. So 5.5 million is worth it if you want to get in on that. But for me, I think what I will do personally is wait and see who is maybe the starting back 3. I'd expect Guardiola to play a lot of minutes. It's just when he plays. And I think for me, saving that 0.5 is a little bit better because I don't think John Stones offers that much more attacking threat in that inverted role anyway. I know we saw him score on pre-season tour, but it's just like shots from outside the box. I just don't think he's going to get as many opportunities like that in the Premier League as he will in pre-season, for example. So it's not a bad pick, don't get me wrong. I think also having City players for this run is going to be really important. But it's, again, one of those cases of who do you own, who's going to play, and I just didn't want to play Pep Roulette when I'm at Fantasy Football Fest tomorrow. So good luck, Ben.
Yeah, I will be keeping a close eye on any team leaks that come out. But like I said, like even if he's going to start game week 1, surely. Like he started in the Community Shield, looked pretty decent in that. Like City overall were quite defensively solid. They only sort of let that go in the last minute. So I do think he starts the season, and that's all I can ask for from my City assets. So we'll move it into the midfield. And there is a couple of similarities in here, but a couple of also key differences. I've also gone Bruno Fernandes. I agree with Josh's points. There's a lot of potential for him to get assists, goals, penalties, free kicks, you name it. He's probably going to be on it. And we've seen in preseason, he's played a lot of his time in the 10 with Mason Mount playing a little bit deeper. And we saw last season Bruno did drop quite deep. And I think the Mason Mount signing does allow Bruno to sort of express himself, get out there a bit more. We've seen him play off the right as well, which puts him sort of advanced, but a bit out wide and maybe not as much shot potential with that. We got Martinelli as well. And like I said, with Josh's team, this is the best triple up for me in the Arsenal team. Martinelli, Saka, Gabriel. We saw in the Community Shield especially, Arteta ended up playing Havertz, which was a bit of a surprise to the FPL community. But what it resulted in is Havertz's average position was quite deep, and the wingers, really, it meant that they could get on, and they were the most forward players in the Arsenal team on the Community Shield, and it resulted in a lot of chance being created from wide areas, from Martinelli, from Saka, and Arsenal transitionally are sensational. So I do think that they're going to get a lot of chances, a lot of goals, a lot of assists. Yes, they're potentially going to get subbed off on 70 minutes because of the way Arsenal play, but like we saw last season with Martinelli, he's going to get the points before that 70-minute point. Anyway, I've gone Rashford as well. Yes, I think Josh has a point in terms of him being moved around in the attack, but he's going to start number 9 in game week 1 against Wolves at home. And I think you can't ignore how well he played at the back end of last season. I think that confidence is going to run through to the start of this season as well. And United's fixture run is too good to ignore as well. Like you can see, I've not really gone too sort of differential in the actual teams that I'm picking in here. So that's why Rashford's in there. I've got Mitoma as well for those first 3 fixtures of the season. I think, again, they are really too good to ignore. Mitoma as well has a really good goal threat. I think his minutes should be nailed in that team, at least to start the season before Europe. And yeah, I really like him as a pick. He, a lot of assist potential. I know Josh has said Eze is probably better on more set pieces, but I think Brighton as a team are much better going forward than someone like Crystal Palace. We know the question marks over in Bremo. I think he'll be fit, and I think he'll be probably just as good of an asset as Mitoma. But yeah, that is the midfield. Josh, what are your thoughts? Obviously, a little bit different in the structure of it.
Yeah, obviously, the difference is being I've gone Salah and an Eze, and you've gone Rashford and Mitoma. One thing to add on the Bruno thing, you obviously mentioned that he went out to the wide right, which I think is a really good thing when Rasmus Højlund comes into play. He's got a target man to sort of aim for in the box, which United have missed for like a good year to 2 years now. So another big plus on Bruno Fernandes is little CV there, I guess you could say. Rashford, though, he is the one guy in my team that I can't really get to, and I would love to have him. He's going to be a monster, don't get me wrong. So it is really frustrating for me not having him, but I've made the sacrifices elsewhere. He looks just really good. He's done his like pre-season camp. He's looked sharp. In pre-season, he's looked good as well. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you just can't have everyone, unfortunately, and he's one of the ones that I have to miss out on. And then Mitoma as well, like you say, you make very good points. He's pretty nailed in that Brighton attack. They do have 3 good fixtures. So yeah, he's a very good option as well for those £6.5 million midfielders. You get what you pay for. He's very good on the eye as well. So if you're watching the Brighton games, he's always fun to watch. It'll be interesting to see what your attack is, because if you've gone triple Brighton, it makes things a little bit more interesting.
Well, I think you're going to be interested in this because I have have indeed gone for triple up on Brighton. And in my starting 11, I only have 4 teams playing, which is basically the definition of going all in for the opening fixtures of the season. I've gone with Erling Haaland and João Pedro. Again, I couldn't ignore the fact that he's the number 9 on penalties and had the most minutes out of any Brighton attacker in pre-season. And then Haaland obviously is going to be the captain as well for the team. Yeah, that is the starting 11, and Josh, there's not really, I don't think, too much to add on to the strikers. Maybe there's a conversation that you need to have about me going for that Brighton triple up. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, that's the only thing that sort of turned me off a little bit, because obviously it's quite easy to do with the 3 Brighton assets. They're all really cheap and they all play in a really, really good team. It's just the getting rid of these assets, because they're all going to, dry up in terms of the fixtures at the same time. And I know a lot of people are quite happy playing a Stupinan throughout bad fixtures as well because of his attacking threat. But I think between these two, you can't necessarily play them all every week, especially when they're playing harder teams, should I say? Sorry. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what your thoughts are in terms of how you're going to move them on, maybe after game week 3, and if you've got players on the bench that you're happy to rotate them with.
Yeah, what I'm going to do then before I explain anything is show you the bench here, and sort of go through my strategy for these Brighton early fixture turns from green to red. So I've got Areola in goal, and like I said, that for me could be Matt Turner and probably will be come game week 1, because a starting keeper is a starting keeper. It doesn't matter to me who I'm going to put in. Chilwell is that guy that can rotate with Estepinian, and rotates really nicely, and it means I don't have to transfer him out either, which is something I don't want to do. I sort of anticipate keeping him for the medium to long term at least, and Chilwell coming in from game week 3, 4 onwards is perfect for me, because the Chelsea's fixtures turn good, Brighton's turn bad, so it's really nice to have him to come in. Bulldog as well, like, it's a starting £4 million player. Again, could really be anyone. I don't think he's going to play too many minutes, but if he does, it's not the end of the world. And then I've got Mubama as well. I think he could get minutes this season, and I'm happy to have him third on my bench. I do think when he gets minutes, he's looked good, especially in pre-season. Yeah. He's got goals as well, so I'm quite happy to have him in my team. And then another key point with these Brighton guys is I've got 1.5 million in the bank. Now, this allows me in one move to go from João Pedro to a £7 million striker, or from Mitoma to an £8 million midfielder. And if I'm looking at not making any transfers between game week 1 and 2 free transfers, 1.5 in the bank going into game week 3 could give me quite a bit of flexibility to go with. So that's the plan right now. And sort of having the 1.5 and having Chilwell on the bench sort of negates that risk that I have with having to get rid of the Brighton players, because I know I've given myself enough leeway with the budget and an extra player on the bench that's going to start and is a very decent FPL asset to play with. So, Josh, what are your thoughts on that, and what are your opinions on going with that sort of strategy to start the season?
Yeah, I think it's the perfect thing to do. You're negating the potential problems that you're going to have later down the line with those Brighton fixtures. I think João Pedro to start is probably the best sub £7.5 million striker to go with. The fixtures are there. Like you said, he's on penalties. We've spoken about him enough already. And I don't really like anyone around that price, because there's some sort of risk attached to them. Like Darwin Núñez has been benched both the last 2 pre-season friendlies. You got Jackson there in a Chelsea team where I can't really see how they're going to create too much. It's going to be heavily reliant on those fullbacks again under Poch, which should be interesting, but it gives you those first 2 game weeks to sort of see how Chelsea play, assess those sort of uncertainties, I guess you can say around those teams like Spurs, Chelsea, where you're banking on a Brighton team that we know are really attacking, really good going forward under De Zerbi, who plays a really nice style of football. So yeah, it's a really good move. I like the idea of it, and yeah, it makes sense.
Okay, so that rounds up our team reveals for game week 1. It's going to be exciting. We're looking forward to it. What do you think of our teams? So let us know in the comments, and also let us know who you've got in your teams.
Yeah, it's going to be super exciting. Thank you everyone for tuning in for pre-season. The content is still going to keep coming throughout the all game week, all 38 game weeks of the season, if I can get my words out. It should be a good laugh. We'll be at Fantasy Football Fest tomorrow or today, as you're probably watching this. So make sure you come and meet us, greet us if you're coming along as well. It'll be a good laugh to see everyone.
Yes, it will indeed. And as always, if you could like the video, if you liked it, subscribe to the FPL Graduates. And as always, I've been Ben.
I've been Josh.
And we'll see you guys
later. Have a good game week, everyone.